What's up, everyone? Welcome to RotoGrinders NFL Showdown Pre-Lock Show. I'm your host, TJ Zwarych, joined by my guy, my friend, the expert, Tim Buell, TastefulTides. How you doing, Tim?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I did not have any of Brock Bowers in the main slate, so I did not make any dollars earlier today. But yeah, I mean, it was a frustrating slate, and obviously you needed Bowers to do anything today. So yeah, I mean, he should have been a pretty clear and obvious play at 5K, but I didn't make that click, so I did not win.
I thought at the end of the morning games that it was going to be a tough day for me, but I ended up tripling up because I had Brock Bowers on basically every team. The combo of Brock Bowers, Parker Washington, and Kyle Manunga I had on almost all of my 20 teams, and then all three of my 3 entry maxes happened to pop in there. So a good day for me, ready to keep it going on tonight's slate. We got a fun little showdown slate. We got Seattle going into Washington. Seattle's a 3-point favorite in this one. I kind of think personally Seattle clobbers them a little bit. Tim, what's your take on this game? Give me your general overview.
Yeah, so general overview, we got Seattle 3-point road favorites. We've got Cooper Kupp out. He was ruled out last night. Terry McLaurin was ruled out as well. So it's a little bit of news there, but nothing breaking or anything like that. I think there's a lot of really good value, and I think that if you're playing multiple lineups, I think you should take advantage of some of these cheap players, especially in your captain slot, just to get a little bit different, because I think that there is some upside on some of these players that we'll talk about that are under 4K, under 5K, definitely, that I think can be really, really viable captains on DraftKings. And so I'd be looking at kind of like a spread out player pool, especially at the captain spot. I ran Sims, and I got quite a few different options. So I was really wasn't really that surprised to see that, because I think some of these cheap guys are really viable even in captain. But we'll talk about that. And we also got to talk about Seattle's running back situation. Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker. I mean, they project very similarly. They are projected very similar. And, when I ran Sims, they're coming out at basically the same amount. I don't know what your take is, but I would much rather play Zach Charbonnet because he gets higher value touches than Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker could break a big play, but I think Zach Charbonnet is the better play for Showdown. So I think that's one decision that you have to make. And then some of these expensive commanders, I think that's another pretty important. Obviously, you're going to be playing Jane Daniels either at captain or flex, but some of these more expensive options like Debo, Zach Ertz, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, things like that. I think those are the difficult decisions to make with commanders.
All right, let's start diving into this one. Go position, well, not position by position, but we'll talk captain on DraftKings, MVP on FanDuel. We will cover all the positions, but kind of talk about the flex as a whole. I like to differentiate them kind of based on their price ranges as opposed to their positions. But let's start talking about the captain position on DraftKings. I feel like if you are playing a cash game today, or you're running a single entry and you're trying to be as close to optimal as possible, there's one clear guy in Jackson Smith-Njigba as the number one option. But like you said, Tim, I think if you want to differentiate today, there are some of these cheap guys that you can pivot to as well.
Yeah, I would mention I think Jaden Daniels is okay as well as a captain in optimal or even cash game type builds. So I would not completely just say that you have to play JSN. I think it's one of those two guys though. In the more traditional smaller field cash game type contest, it's JSN or Jaden Daniels. So when I ran Sims, I got to more of JSN than anybody else. That wasn't really that surprising to me at all. But then I started getting to a ton of Torrey Horton, AJ Barner, Elijah Arroyo. So that's super interesting. I even got to some Chris Moore. So I got more of Horton, Barner, Arroyo than I did Jaden Daniels in Sims. So I think that's super interesting, and it just goes to show that these guys do have upside here, despite their cheap price tag. And I would take advantage of getting to these guys if you're making multiple lineups. We did get a comment in chat about getting Zach Ertz in Sims. I'm getting to some Zach Ertz in Captain, but I'm getting to more of these other value pieces. So I am getting to a little bit of Ertz, but it's definitely interesting. Like if I was making 20 teams, like in a 20 max, I might have 6 or 7 captains, which is quite a few. Like normally I would play fewer than that, but I think tonight it warrants that, just because I think there's some really, really strong value, and there's a lot of fragility in like who's going to be getting the passing work for Seattle. So like we don't really know between Barner and Arroyo, and we haven't even talked about the super cheap wide receivers that are on this slate. So there's a lot of fragility, I think, with some of these projections.
Big time. Like in theory, we don't really know who the Seahawks wide receiver 3 is going to be today. It could be a bunch of these different plus $200 or $200 ish players. And then there's also Treylon Burks, who just got called up for Washington and is going to play tonight. And I normally wouldn't be interested in a guy in his first game, but he just got called up to this active roster so fast. I can't help but wonder if they might have a little bit of a plan for him. And so I do personally value JSN a lot more than Jaden Daniels at the captain on DraftKings. I think he's probably going to have 20 targets today, and he is the guy that I really want to get to. But if I am differentiating, you nailed the 2 guys that I like the most right off the hop, Torrey Horton and Chris Moore. No Terry McLaurin. Chris Moore basically just steps into his spot. Really like him tonight. And then on the Torrey Horton side of things, he should get a lot more usage and a lot more targets today without Cooper Kupp. And so really like him at 3,200. Don't think I would go quite as aggressively on Arroyo and Barner at the captain position, but nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It just takes a touchdown or 2 at those prices, and for most of the expensive guys to do well when you're cooking. So don't mind that whatsoever. Any interest in we haven't talked about him, but you can probably get Sam Darnold for very low ownership at the captain position today.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly a really good candidate to have the highest amount of raw points on this slate. I mean, I think though, if I do spend up at the captain spot, he's going to fall short for me. He didn't even really sim that well. I didn't get that much in sims of him at captain. I'm out. I get it if you're making 150 or if you want to sprinkle him into a 20 set, but he's not for me in single entry or 3 max. I'm getting very little of him in sims, only around like 1.5%. So I'm personally out on Darnold. I would try maybe one of the running backs actually. If you're not going to go JSN and you want to play somebody who's a little bit more expensive. And that would be, personally, I think it's Zach Charbonnet, but I could see going Kenneth Walker as well.
I like both of them in flex a lot more just because I have a tough time seeing them as like the highest point per dollar scorer when they are splitting with each other. Like I like the idea of just landing on them at a flex position, but don't think I'm personally going to be getting to either of them at the captain position today. Let's talk a little bit about FanDuel at that MVP spot. Very similar now since they changed the rules and they made it a salary multiplier at the captain position as well. I think JSN is still my top option over here, even though it's not point per reception. I still prefer him above everybody else. Do you like Jaden Daniels better where it's not point per reception and he's a little bit cheaper?
Personally, I do like Jaden Daniels a little bit more on the FanDuel site, but I will say JSN is simming better in the MVP spot. So just my own little personal bias, I would personally rather click on Daniels in the MVP, but it's completely viable to go JSN. If you don't want to click either one of them in your MVP, maybe it's Debo. I'm getting to about 16% of him in the MVP spot. He has not looked great. I personally am not going to go there on FanDuel. I think it's just going to be JSN or Jaden for me. Possibly if I want to get super contrarian, I'll go Zach Charbonnet. This would be, I think, maybe go Sam Darnold on FanDuel. I like a little bit better than on DK, but I'm mainly just sticking with Jaden Daniels and JSN.
I think you can do the Chris Moore or Torrey Horton thing on FanDuel too. They're so cheap. Like they're $3,000 cheaper, $4,000. Chris Moore is $4,400 cheaper than Jason Myers. Like,
yeah,
that is very, very enticing to me today. I think you can do Torrey Horton or Chris Moore in the MVP positions. I think actually they would probably be my second and third favorites off of Jackson Smith and Jigba today. I think I'd go JSN number one, and then I think I would probably have it Chris Moore number two, Horton number three at that captain position. Let's talk about the flex spot, kind of go through the different pricing tiers. Who are you going to prioritize in terms of the guys up top today? We got the quarterbacks. We have Deebo Samuel and JSN priced up there with the quarterbacks. Kind of talk through, like, if you don't have JSN at captain, are you still going to be prioritizing him at the flex position, or are you contemplating a full JSN fade today?
No, I would not fade JSN. In fact, I would try really hard to get overweight him, regardless if you play him in the captain or in the flex, because I think you're still going to need his raw points. And so even if he doesn't have a slate busting performance, even if he gets you, let's say, I don't know, like 18, he falls short of his median projection, but he's still giving you 18 points. So I think that is a perfectly reasonable expectation, and somebody that you might still need to win GPPs. So if I don't put him in the captain, I'm still going to take the raw points in flex. I'm personally, I think I'm going to be leaving out Deebo at 9,600. That could obviously come back and bite me, but that's the expensive fade that I'm currently fading in both captain and in the flex. Now, I'd like to hear your take on these Seattle running backs. I don't know how many lineups you're playing and how you're kind of dividing these guys. Right now, I don't have either one. If I had to pick one, it'd be Zach Charbonnet. But currently I'm fading both the running backs, and I'm hoping that neither one of them has a real big performance and they basically just cannibalize each other. That's my hope. Sometimes you have to take stands in showdown. So right now I don't have either running back, but if I had to pick one, it'd be Charbonnet. What about you? How are you handling the Seattle backfield?
I actually have nothing to add. Like, throwing in Krosky Merritt in there as well, talk some Bill. I don't want to really so I'm only playing two different single entry teams today. I just had a very busy afternoon. I didn't get a chance to enter a whole bunch of stuff, and I was making dinner then right into this show. And so I didn't enter a whole bunch of stuff. I wouldn't be full fading if I was playing more than two lineups. But in the only two lineups, I'm not getting to these guys at all. If I'm picking one, it would be Charbonnet. Second choice would be Walker. Third choice would be JCM. But I'm not really getting to any of these guys. Again, like, I'm with you. Charbonnet would be the first choice, but I'm just going to be all over the passing games today as opposed to the rushing attacks.
Yeah, I currently don't have Ja'Cory Crosby Merritt either. I'm looking at his backup McNichols currently, just because I'm hoping, you always have to tell yourself a story when you're making a showdown lineup, and I'm hoping Washington is playing from behind and they need to do some check downs to McNichols. That's my hope anyway. I could be way wrong. This is a pretty close spread, and Washington could easily be leading this game, and that would be not great news for McNichols. But I'm hoping that they are playing from behind, and Daniels will want to check it down to McNichols. But that's just my hope.
I do think a balanced build approach with these, 7K tier of running backs and some Zach Ertz, that will be a low-owned build today. But man, I just don't really care. I'm going stars and scrubs because I just don't care about this mid-tier with those three running backs. Ertz is overpriced. Luke McCaffrey is overpriced. I'm always down to play the kickers like Jason Myers, Matt Gay, totally fine with both of them today. And I really like your McNichols call as well. Last week, we had Washington on a showdown slate, and McNichols captain lineup actually ended up being my highest scoring lineup of all my teams. And I think of all of the running backs, he would be the most likely one that I'd be plugging in. But even with that, like, I'm not going to be playing the defenses today just because there's so many cheap options that I like. And that's as we scroll. And it's really the exact same on FanDuel. Chris Moore, Torrey Horton, AJ Barner, Elijah Arroyo. Like, those are the four guys that I would play one of Horton, Barner, Arroyo at least. You can play all three, but I would play one of them at least in every lineup. And Chris Moore is by far my favorites of the Washington guys outside of Debo, like where we have Moore, Lane, McCaffrey. Moore is the guy that I'm going with.
I would definitely say Moore is the safest. I do think Jalen Lane has a bigger ceiling. He could easily get you 0 here, but I do think Lane is the better YOLO play. They're coming in similarly owned. I think Moore is going to come in a little bit higher than Lane, but I could be wrong. I think Lane's is the bigger boomer bust guy, and Moore is a little bit safer. Are you getting any McCaffrey?
No, and honestly, even in like a bunch of lineups, I probably don't get there. Like, he can score a touchdown. They do seem to look to him in the red zone a little bit, but he just really doesn't get that many snaps. Chris Moore kind of seems to be the one that is always out there with Debo, and then McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, and now maybe even Treylon Burks seem to be the ones that rotate a little bit. But so I'm not going any Luke McCaffrey at that price. If I were getting into more lineups, I would be playing Jalen Lane. But yeah, Chris Moore is my favorite. Torrey Horton, I would prioritize on the same level of Moore and way above those other guys like Lane and McCaffrey. And then I still think I like those tight ends better than a McCaffrey and a Lane as well.
The only thing that I'll say about McCaffrey is he's priced right around the kickers, and he's going to be significantly lower owned than the kickers. So, and salary's not really a thing tonight. It's very easy to play whoever you want. So that $400 to $600 that you have to pay to get McCaffrey really doesn't matter. So I think McCaffrey is an interesting way to get away from some ownership and maybe create some separation in a large field GPP. Personally, I'm not clicking it. I'm not clicking the kickers though either because I'm playing McNichols, who's also looks to be a little bit lower owned than McCaffrey, but I think it's going to be pretty close between those two. So yeah, I mean, I think McCaffrey is just a decent pivot off the kickers.
Couldn't agree more from that perspective. If I were getting into more lineups, I would probably do a type of thing where it's like I'll build a lineup shell that I like, and I'll do the same lineup with one with McCaffrey, one with Myers, one with Gay, one with McNichols, and then once I have all four of those in there, then I'll go to like a new shell kind of thing. That's typically how I like to run things in my 20 entry max sets that I usually do. Like I said, only doing 2 single entries today, but that's usually how I would go about things. Rank the below 4K guys: Jalen Lane, Chris Moore, Torrey Horton, AJ Barner, Elijah Arroyo.
So it's got to be Horton number 1, Barner number 2, probably Chris Moore, then Arroyo, then Lane. But I do think that Lane is pretty interesting for large field stuff. But those those three Seattle guys, Horton, Barner, Arroyo, they're all really, really strong plays today. Kind of curious. We currently have Horton at 25% projected ownership. I think it's going to come in a little higher than that. I think he's going to be really popular because he's going to be their wide receiver too. Like in two wide receiver sets, I would imagine it's going to be Horton out there with JSN. So at 3,200, taking that Cooper Kupp role, I'd imagine he's going to be pretty popular tonight.
Very good point. I could see him popping in higher than that as well. I would rank it Torrey Horton 1, Chris Moore 2, Barner 3, Arroyo 4, Jalen Lane 5, I think. Let's talk about these full-on punts, sub $1,000. We got Cody White. I'm going to be honest, R. White the third. I don't know who the R is. Is it Roddy White back in the league? Ricky White is $200. We have Treylon Burks for Washington, just got called up. These are really cheap people who will get snaps.
Yep.
Taking shots on any of these guys?
I am currently not. Treylon Burks would be the guy, or Cody White. Now, I don't really know much about Cody White or Ricky White. I'm not going to pretend that I do. I think Cody White's going to be playing more, so he would be the Seattle guy that I would take out of these $200 players. But I think Burks is the best option. They're not going to be that popular. We have Cody White and Treylon Burks around 5%. I don't think it's going to get steamed that heavily. I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty there. Absolutely, if you want to get exposure to these guys in like a portfolio of teams, that's fine. But I'm not like prioritizing any of these three. I don't think that they're going to be anybody that we necessarily have to have.
All right. I think it is time for Coined by our guy Chop, the Feel It in the Plums play of the night. Tim, who do you got breaking the slate tonight on our showdown slate?
Yeah, so I kind of talked about him early on. He doesn't appear to be getting that much ownership, which I really like to see. I hope that holds true. He's seen a price increase after his good game last week. Jeremy McNichols at 4,400. Like I said, I'm hoping Washington is in a trailing script so that he can get some checkdowns from Daniels. I'm hoping that JCM gets kind of phased out here and McNichols gets more snaps. And I hope that I'm early on them before, it doesn't seem like the field agrees with me, which is fine. I'm going to take a shot. And that's how you take down GPPs. So you have to take risks.
I am throwing in a 20 entry max real quick. I just reserved the entries since I looked and there's still some spots left. And so I'm going to build them after we're out of here. But I did throw myself a 20 entry max in there as well. I apologize. As I was doing that, I completely missed who your Plums play was.
Jeremy McNichols.
That's what I thought. That's what it would make sense based on our earlier analysis. I love that a lot. That I think he is a really, really great play today. I'm going to go so JSN is the guy that I'll have in every lineup. He's going to be my highest owned captain. That is the guy that I think breaks the slate. But because that is a little bit too obvious, I will go Chris Moore as my guy today. I really like the idea of playing a Seattle onslaught today and play some Chris Moore and Jeremy McNichols as your run backs as Washington has to throw a lot to come from behind. I think that is a nice little script to build with today. If you got any questions, get them into the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat. Get them into the YouTube chat. I will look at the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat first. I'll go to YouTube second. YouTube, smash that like button for us. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our shows. But most of all, hit that like button so that we can battle that YouTube algorithm. Help us get noticed. Help us keep the lights on. Help us have as many shows as possible. More likes equal more free shows for you, the people. And speaking of free and good deals and things of the sort, you can get yourself a 3-day pass for only $9.99 for NFL DFS. Get access to all the RotoGrinders tools like SimLabs, Lineup HQ, all the articles, all the shows for 3 days for only $9.99. Get that on like a Wednesday or a Thursday next week. Get yourself access to all the tools for all the football slates throughout the weekend. Plus, if you want to play more than football, you want access to the wonderful NHL team like with Tim and Dane, aka Moneyball, and the whole crew, plus NBA, college football, PGA, UFC, the works. Check out Combo Pro. It's only $79.99 for your first month. That's $40 off, and it's only $5 more than NFL Premium. Can't pass up that deal. Get yourself some Combo Pro. Both the links for both of those packages are right down below us in the description on YouTube, right down there. So when you're hitting the like button, you can go over there and check it out. Taking some questions here. Would you prefer a 4-2 or a 5-1 build today, Tim? If I'm being honest, I don't really ever typically think of it in 3-3, 4-2, 5-1s. I more so just think of it in terms of what players I'm playing.
I think about if the field is going to build in a certain way and how maybe I can get different to stay away from what the field is doing. I think that the 4-2 is going to be more popular, so I might lean 5-1, but it's pretty close. I think it's 5-1 is going to be a little bit more different.
Wow, this is a interesting one. I'm not sure if this is a season long or if they're just planning to leave a lot of salary on the table. But Ja'Cory Kroski-Merritt or Horton in the flex?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good question.
I like Horton.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Is the Seattle kicker in play tonight? Yes, Jason Myers, I think, is very much in play. He looks really, really good to me tonight. Is the best build 3-3, 4-2, or Seattle Onslaughts? In my 2 single entry lineups, and again, I am going to run out some 20 entry max just because Tim kind of enticed me with the playing those super cheap guys at captain tonight. I want to mix in some of those lineups. But in my 2 lineups so far, I have a 4-2 as well as a 4-2. So I'm 4-2 in both of those today. 4 Seattle, 2 Washington players. Who is your favorite FanDuel MVP? I think for me, it's still JSN.
Mine's Jaden Daniels, but it's one of those two.
McNichols in the flex, absolutely. Ertz or McNichols? It's McNichols for me, I think. Like, Ertz more likely to get a touchdown.
Yeah. I
don't know. What do you think, Ertz or McNichols?
It really, I mean, without knowing the rest of your lineup, it's kind of hard to answer that. I'm pretty high on McNichols, but I understand that Ertz is probably projected better. So, do you want to eat that much salary on your team? And I don't know who your captain is. I'd probably stick with Ertz, but it's close.
Best DK captain tonight. I think the one SimLabs is projecting to be with the highest optimal rate by a fairly wide margin is Jackson Smith and Jigba. Who is your favorite pivot if you're not playing JSN tonight?
It would be Jaden Daniels. But then if you don't want to play either one of those two, it would be one of these 3 cheap Seahawks, whether it be Torrey Horton, AJ Barner, or Elijah Arroyo. Those would be all cheap Seattle players that I would be trying to get exposure to at the captain spot.
On that note, you want Arroyo or Barner with your last piece in a lineup?
Yeah, I saw that question. I think that's going to be a decision that a lot of people make. Barner is safer. He's also going to be a little bit higher owned. I think you stick with Barner in that scenario, but just know that that's going to be the more popular side.
That's my exact thoughts as well. I like Barner a little bit better in a vacuum, but Arroyo will be a little bit lower owned. Left 1,800 on the table on DraftKings. No problem with that whatsoever. Who's your best Washington play? For me, that would be Chris Moore. What are your thoughts on Cody White?
I don't have a lot of thoughts. I don't know much about him. I think he's viable. If you absolutely have to go there. The thing is, I don't think you really absolutely have to go there tonight. Like, we're not in like dire need of salary. That's the thing. So, but I mean, I completely get it. If it makes things work, he would be the guy that I would pick over Ricky White. But I would probably go Treylon Burks over Cody White.
All right. I think that'll do it for questions today. We have done the ad reads. We have done the questions. We have gave out our favorite plays of the night, and we have broke down all the positions, all the price tiers. I think that means, Tim, it is time for us to get out of here. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Hope you had a successful set of slate so far. And if not, hopefully we gave you all the tools that you need to take something down tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everyone will be back for more NBA and NFL shows tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. On behalf of myself and Tim, we will see you next time. Peace.